Catalina, founder and CEO here at Telomere. We are working with boutique studio owners to build operational systems that drive growth and retention. And we are super excited to tackle sales today, which is a topic that is very top of mind for a lot of studio owners, specifically because we are constantly giving. We are in the services business, which revolves so much around hospitality, but the act of actually selling something, which we know is very important to just keep the lights on, is something that needs to be developed and learned. It's like a muscle that needs to be trained. And so super excited to talk about that with you today. So before we jump in, a little more about us on the screen here. We are a business consultancy and a marketing agency for boutique fitness and yoga businesses. We've worked with over 800 studios. We've lost count at this point. We've been around for almost 10 years, and we know exactly what it takes to succeed in the space. We help studios build community, maximize conversion, improve retention, and all of those things need that sales and business mindset that we so often leave behind when we're focusing on a heart-led, mission-led business. We specifically are working in business consulting on the one hand and delivering a suite of marketing services on the other. So today's agenda, and I'm joined here by my wonderful co-host, Zach. I will get to you in a sec. So today we tried to keep it really simple because we did want to give you the goods right off the bat. So we're going to cover our sales framework that we use, know, love, tried and true. We are going to walk through objection handling, and we are also going to talk about, okay, what do we do with that information and how do we take it away to our studios and make it happen? So last but certainly not least, before we dive in, I'm joined by Zach, a consultant here at Telomere who has over 15 years of experience across multiple fitness brands, specifically in sales. So when this topic was requested and came up as a masterclass, he was just the person to join us today. So Zach, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't know if I can make myself sound any better than you just did, but yeah, really excited to be here. This is right in my wheelhouse. This is actually year 19 being in the industry, and all of that time I've had some hand in sales. I still remember my first personal training sales job at the ripe age of 20 years old, selling contract personal training. So I'm looking forward to show you all the stuff that I've learned along the way, and yeah, happy to help you guys out with it.
Awesome. So in terms of setting the scene and providing some context, so the problem, what is the issue? Some of you might not have front desk staff and some of you will, but regardless, let's assume that front desk, for the purpose of the conversation, is the client-facing layer that is between you and your customers becoming loyal advocates, members, repeating customers. So your front desk is probably doing a great job at what they were hired to do. They welcome in guests, they keep things running, they're making people feel at home, they're answering questions, and they're primarily leaning into a place of troubleshooting as a way to service the customers. But unfortunately, that is not, I don't want to say aggressive, but that is just not enough when it comes to actually selling and actually selling more. And so it's very common for someone to walk in curious about your intro offer or to ask about pricing very directly, and your front desk then freezes quite literally and makes it a little bit less of a like downplays it a little bit. I've even seen so many instances over and over again where the front desk team will actually tell the customer, as a way of being overly hospitable, they will say to the customer, oh, don't buy this because it's going to be way cheaper to do this other thing, or don't bother buying this now because in next week we're going to run a sale and you're better off buying class packs and this, that, and the other. And so quite often, coming from a good place, your front desk is doing the opposite of what you want them to do by getting on the side of your of your customer and not really having a strategic framework in place to sell what makes the most sense for the studio. But at the base of that, we want to be selling what makes the most sense for the customer. This starts to dive a little bit into your pricing model and what the right pricing structure should be for your studio to encourage maximum conversion and then maximum retention. We're not going to be talking about pricing today. Often pricing can be standing in the way of seamless sales conversations. But if you feel that's the case, please reach out to us and we'll help you address that directly. But all that to say, assuming your pricing is set up to convert, most studio owners are not training their teams enough on sales because they're afraid that it'll come across as pushy or salesy because it's uncomfortable. And that fear is obviously understandable, but it's costing you members that actually need what you offer every single week. That ties back to the pricing piece a little bit, where you have to think of yourself as the expert, as the guide. You are the one that needs to be creating those pricing options that are going to result in success for your clients. So you are the one that needs to say, okay, if I want you to feel the maximum results of what it is that I'm offering, then you need to be coming in twice a week. You need to be doing this, that, and the other. And so you're kind of already being very customer facing and serving them directly by aligning your services to their success. By the way, Zach, feel free to interrupt me at any point. So why this problem happens, it's because, again, your front desk staff, they're hired for a certain list of tasks that you need them to do in order to keep things running, keep things moving. But you're also hiring them because they are that first point of contact with a client and your studio. So you want them to be good and you want them to represent your studio. You want them to align to your values as a way to really push your unique selling points and the specific vibe and uniqueness of your studio forward. You are likely going to be naturally hiring people that are aligned because the studio is so inherently part of you that you are going to be hiring people that you like because they align with what you like and you are like-minded. And so probably they are very good at something that you prioritize, or they are just very nice and you appreciate their energy. And so you've brought them into this space because you trust that they will do your studio justice at that first impression point. At Telomere, we talk about first impressions, yes, the first time, but there's a continuous first impression happening as a way to continue to keep clients engaged. So that's one thing, why it's happening. Now, selling specifically is a very different skill set. And without a framework to follow, most people will just default to what feels safe, what they know, avoiding elements of sales techniques that they personally find triggering. For instance, I personally hate when someone calls me randomly without me expecting their call and they just start selling me something when I might be literally in the process of like changing a diaper, and I answer my phone because I'm worried it's urgent. And so that just is not setting the tone for me to take in what they're saying. I would rather have a text message say, hey, I'm calling you from Yoga Studio ABC. I want to talk to you about something. Is tomorrow at 10 a.m. a good time? Yes, great. And then that call would be a completely different situation. So we're always personally avoiding the things that we find triggering. We're not relying on a specific framework that is laid out to us by the studio, who is our employer. So what usually ends up happening is we'll create some kind of price sheet. We will hope that the person converts on their own. We'll say, look, here's a price sheet. It's laminated. It's at the front desk. If this person is asking about class packs, here's the list. I've mapped out cost per class. If this person is asking about memberships, here's the list. Push the unlimited, and that's it. And when it doesn't work, studio owners end up assuming that they have the wrong people, or they get frustrated. They wonder whether they need to be introducing rewards or incentives for sales. But at the end of the day, they just have untrained people that need training. They don't need to be replaced. They are just wanting some kind of guidance. Remember that clear is kind. And the good news about this problem is that it's really specifically fixable. So there are solutions for it.
Kat, as you're changing us over and we're about to jump into this little bit of role play, and we're going to kind of show you what the before photo looks like. I did want to continue off the back of what you were just saying. And this is probably one of the top things that comes to my mind when I'm considering how to make sales happen at your studio, and why there tends to be a roadblock sometimes with your front desk staff if you have them. I gave that example of doing personal training sales when I was young, 19, 20 years old. And I was selling packages that were $2,500, $3,500. We would sell 12 months, 24 months of training at a time. And in my 19, 20-year-old brain, I always thought, this is the most money that anyone has ever had. No one is going to sign up for this. It's too expensive. And I would have all of this apprehension. And to your point, I was applying a lot of my own personal lens and kind of fears and expectations on the process. And it made the process personally something that I had a lot of discomfort with. But then the execution of the process, it was oftentimes like super rocky. So to your point, there's this element of us of we kind of sell and avoid selling in the ways we want to be sold, and we want to, avoid being sold to. And that happens all of the time. So the benefit of a process and role playing and having solutions to kind of overcome that through system is something that I've always leaned into. And I think we're going to kind of give some of that stuff today.
Okay, so without further ado, the first role play is I am the client, and I have just wrapped up my intro, which at this studio is a free first class, and Zach is the front desk person.
All right. Hey, great class today. We should get you on a membership. Everybody does the unlimited. It's $199 a month.
Oh, that feels like a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But it's unlimited. It's worth it.
Okay, well, that was a really good class, but going from just having done the one to committing to $199 feels like a lot, but I did really like it. So why don't I think about it? Maybe I'll talk to my husband. I'll think about it and I'll let you know.
Okay, cool. Just let us know. I mean, you can sign up on the website if you want to.
Okay, thanks. Bye. See
And
you.
that's scene. We're kind of laughing here as Kat catches her breath. We're kind of laughing here, but guys, like, you might be saying, wow, that is performatively bad. The unfortunate part of this and why we're laughing is because this happens all of the time. This happens way more often than you would like. And I would like to add in the point here that, you might be thinking of one or two people on your team that can execute kind of a scenario like this at a really high level. The question I'm always wondering is everybody executing at a really high level? And if you listen to that and it sounds familiar and you're like, wait, why are they kind of giggling a little bit? Then I think it'd be beneficial to kind of point out some of the misses in this role play. At the top, I think one of the number one mistakes and one of the ones we really wanted to point out was just going straight to the price. Hey, it's $199. That's what you should do. That's kind of like the number one miss that a lot of people make. Some of the smaller kind of misses in there is I didn't talk to Kat at all or call back to Kat's goals or her intention for being here or her why. There was nothing. I didn't allude to it whatsoever. I went straight to our most expensive option, and I didn't really consider her goals, maybe some of the objections she's already alluded to, or some of the discovery that I would have already done at this point. I'm just like, yeah, you should do unlimited because everybody does unlimited. Again, I already mentioned that piece about pricing. And there was really no bridge or framing. It was just like, you're done. So logical next step, person standing in front of me, buy something. And there's no kind of bridge there to say like, hey, you've had this experience. no discussion of value or anything like that whatsoever, bridging them into the next logical step, not based off of price or units or credits, but based off of I have a person in front of me with an intent for being here. I'm going to bridge that intent to the best pathway for them to continue to get to where they want to go. And then the number one, or not the number one, but one of my personal top issues here is just letting her say, yeah, I'm going to go think about it. And I'm like, cool, like do it on the website. So no urgency there, or no real reason to kind of get started.
Yeah, that's really just passing it to me, and nothing's going to happen with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of the things you'll hear me talk about a lot when I'm talking with clients or just discussing sales is um, we have to ask for that sale, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when I come back into more of the process. And I know Kat, you're going to talk about it as well, but with a guy, there has to be some level of guidance where we're asking or we're making it a suggestion for them to get to the next step. It's very rare that people are just going to have an immediate inclination to
Mhm.
just say, okay, sign me up for that unlimited. We got to guide in there a little bit.
Yeah, and I also do want to say that when it comes to asking for the sale, we work primarily with privately owned boutique studios, which means that we do not really work with um, franchisees. And typically, and most of you will know that the franchises are really aggressive with sales. They are not holding back on asking for the sale one bit. Now, I know some of you on here are part of a franchise and you're curious. You're probably here because you're curious to have a sales strategy that feels more aligned to what the customer might want, which will make for a more successful relationship and longer versus just hounding them with sales, 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 discount, discount, discount. But we need to find a balance and remind ourselves that asking for the sale is going to help support the business's mission of continuing to bring movement to people in that area. And so even though it feels a certain way, you need to kind of flip the script of how you approach it so that you can really feel comfortable with asking for that sale.
Mhm.
So let's take a look at the framework that we've been suggesting and that we've been talking about and alluding to in the marketing. So we call it the front desk conversion framework. It's a framework that we suggest to address sales and any issues with sales at your studio. So always introducing this is great, and then going back to it if ever there are any hiccups or room for improvement is also great. It's very clear, very clean, just 3 steps. We've built and refined it over the years, and it goes connect, align, close. 3 steps, and at every interaction, there is a really specific process that I'm going to run you through. What I do want you to see, though, is that pay attention, because anything to do with like price doesn't come up until step 3, and that's because we really want to lean into value-based pricing and decision making that's coming from an emotional place. The client already understands why continuing to attend your classes and be a client at your studio is important, but the beauty in this framework is that we're kind of working them up to it in a way that feels natural instead of pushy. So the first step is connect. That's the first phase. So the first thing you'll want to do is encourage a warm greeting that signals that you're available to help, that you are at their service. So that's something that you can literally prescribe to your front desk by giving them some options. And even though this feels really awkward and forced, with time and role play and practice, it will just help give them comfort that they are behaving and acting in a way that is aligned with your brand. So an example would be, hi there, hey, good morning, all these kind of, usual options, but something that signals to the customer that you are at their service. This is also setting up the tone, setting the tone for an honest and open conversation. People will never buy something from someone they don't like, and they will never trust anyone that they don't like. And so the first step is to create that rapport that is going to build familiarity, that is going to build trust and lead to the sale. The second thing to do in step one in this first phase is to ask open-ended questions. The greeting, of course, matters, but what comes right after it is equally important. So you'll want your team to be asking questions that are open-ended so that it encourages some kind of response. And any response is a very useful information that they need to be clocking immediately. So again, you can prescribe this. What brings you in today? How are you feeling? Do you live in the, I don't know, do you live in the area is not an open-ended question, but something that kind of doesn't feel like they're going to come straight in for the sale, but rather just building some rapport. The third one is to kind of keep asking questions and have listening be more than talking. So the 70-30 rule of 70% listening, 30% speaking. So your team should be listening 70% of the time and speaking 30% of the time. And that's a good kind of gauge for who is dominating the conversation. You always want the client to be leading. What we found here, and I know this sounds kind of obvious, but what we found here is that most untrained staff will do the opposite. They'll talk about the studio, the classes, the schedule. They'll talk up the owner who is, oh, she's a celebrity trainer. She's trained Jennifer Aniston and she's amazing and she's so cool. And you have to try the bar burn and you have to try the power flow. And let me tell you, we have filtered water over there and blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, they have talked for 70% of the time without any actual idea of what the person is looking for, wanting. So first, the connection, and everything else follows on from that. The goal of this step one is exactly what it says on the tin: connect, make the client feel seen before anything else happens. So step two is to align. So matching the client to the right offering based on what they told you. So what that means is never list every option. I like to kind of say, okay, recommend one or two that might fit what they shared, that might align with what they shared. This is actually where most of the sales work actually happens, the lead up to it. It's the step that teams skip the most often, and it actually feels very thoughtful when you think about it from the standpoint of, once you understand what the person is looking for, your job is to connect what they told you to the right offering. And because the front desk team is merely doing this job that's outlined on a checklist, they are not going to feel emotionally tied to what the client responds there and then. So ideally, they're just connecting the dots. What are a couple of offerings that match what the client has just told them? The second thing is to try and use the words that the client has used back to them. So using their own language back to them will just cement this align strategy. So as an example, Zach might be like, hey, I love this studio. I love how close it is to my house, but I'm actually just trying to figure out whether the class timings work with my own schedule. And I'm not really sure. Like, I have a lunchtime break. I come home at 5. And so all of a sudden, Zach has told us that his main reservation is the schedule. And so my response back to him would be like, got it. Sounds like you're a super busy guy, and you should absolutely make time for this because it's going to allow you to show up better at work and at home. So based on what you mentioned about your schedule, we have an express lunchtime class that you can pop into. We have a killer 6 a.m. workout. So starting to just address his concerns, align his concerns with your pricing options will make it feel like you're really, like they're really listening. And then Lastly, you'll want to kind of start translating value for them into real terms. And that is also an alignment. So making the math really simple there so that the client can kind of start putting it together in their life, in their lifestyle. You can start saying, okay, well, if you come twice a week, that works out to that, which makes sense with this pricing option I just proposed to you. And I'm really thinking about this because this is what we do. You are our target client, and we understand what your lifestyle is. And as such, we've created pricing options that align to what you need and what we want you to feel. So making the decision feel more obvious versus this overwhelming big decision. Anything to add, Zach?
The only thing I was going to say to that piece is the thing that I think I worked with a brand a long time ago, and when we talked about sales and kind of this connecting the dots, like you mentioned, we talked about it as a prescription, and a prescription is a derivative of a diagnosis, and the diagnosis comes from the conversation that you're having in the beginning. So you're doing this discovery, and all you're doing is finding the best, like I could alluded to earlier, you're finding the best path to get to the place that we both know already and have agreed is the place that they want to go. And so it's just a prescription to kind of get them there, not a sale. It's not a pitch. It's, hey, I've heard you. I'm repeating back the stuff that you've said to me, indicating that I've heard you. We've built some rapport here. I combine those two things together. You now trust me to say, this is the kind of the best spot. So it's almost like if you're doing some of this pre-work and you're getting that connection and you're finding all the alignment, the next step is very clear to everybody. It's almost obvious, and it makes the process a lot smoother. And then again, for your team, it doesn't feel like you're doing this mental like a game or strategy. It's just like this is what's best.
Totally. And the other thing I'd say is that problem solution piece of like the prescription. If you think about it, let's say you have a hot yoga studio and someone's coming to you because they're stressed and they feel they don't have, all the kind of usual issues. If you think about it in the sense of this person has a headache and I have Advil, I'm offering them Advil and I can, only do so much. I can get them a glass of water, but it should be so clearly obvious that it doesn't feel like you're pushing. You're just saying, hey, I have the solution to your problem. We can do something about it. So step number 3 of the framework, if I can get the slide, is to close. You want to make sure that you are guiding the decision and not leaving it open-ended, which is exactly what Zach did in our role play of just being like, okay, cool. Because this is the step where everybody either skips entirely or kind of fumbles because, again, nobody has kind of encouraged them or created a safe space for them to literally and directly be like, okay, let's do it. And now what? And that little gap is challenging, but addressable. And there are 2 approaches that we like to propose and use. The first one is the assumptive close. And what that means is you kind of assume it's closed. You move forward as if it's been made. You're kind of like, cool, we're on the same page. Let me get you set up versus when would you like to sign up? It's the when would you like to get started versus the would you like to get started? So it works really well when the conversation's gone really smoothly and there's clear alignment and you're kind of like giving them a soft little push in that direction, but it's for their own good. So it's okay. The second approach is the soft close, which is when you guide them without really assuming, but you are still kind of on their side. So you're going kind of based on everything you've shared, I really feel like this is a great fit. We'd love to have you. You'll have so much fun. What do you think? And then it kind of also leads us into it. Both are really effective. I I don't feel neither are pushy when step one and step two have been really properly um, carried out. The key is that your team needs to actually ask versus handing over a pricing sheet and wait. If someone is hesitating, it's not necessarily a no, it's an invitation to keep asking questions, because if someone says no, it doesn't close the door forever unless they're saying, no, I actually am just visiting and I'm about to move to Australia. But if it's kind of like, I'm not really sure, I'm still figuring some stuff out with my, I don't know, something that you can't really argue with. Um, I think there you can kind of start leaving the door open, but being really respectful. No problem. Here's our card. Here's our information. And just keep that relationship alive. Hope, check that they're on the mailing list so that they can keep receiving information and keep just kind of that conversation going. Okay. So handling objections.
Everybody's favorite part, handling objections. This usually comes in at the close, right? This is where most people kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable, because frequently you're going to run up against a little bit of friction here, right? If there is an objection to overcome, obviously by its nature, an objection is something that's kind of blocking your path. Um, I have a framework. It's not my framework, but a very it's been used for years. It's successful, that I kind of remember and utilize when I'm handling objections, and that is IRMA, which is an acronym. Sarah on the team is laughing because Sarah and I have known each other for a very long time, and we have both used this acronym for a long time. Hopefully, you've heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, this is the part where you're going to want to write this down. So, IRMA is an acronym to handling objections. No matter what objection you get, this is going to walk you through handling it. So, the E in IRMA, and IRMA is spelled a little odd here, but the E in IRMA stands for empathize. So, when somebody puts an objection in front of you, whether it's too expensive, I need to think about it, I don't have time, I need to talk to my partner, I've tried and quit things like this before, those are some of the objections you're going to get. The first thing you're going to want to do is empathize. You're going to validate whatever objection is in front of you before you respond. So that's the E in IRMA. So everybody's writing that down. E, empathize. That's step number one. Step number two, you want to isolate that objection. You want to find the real objection. Sometimes the first objection is not the real objection, or it's just the easiest one to say. Usually I need to think about it is like the default, quickly pull it out of my pocket objection when I have no idea what to say. So your goal is to try to isolate or ask a few more questions around that. It's like Kat was saying, if somebody says no, it doesn't mean that the process or the kind of the conversation is over. There's probably just a little bit more discovery that needs to happen there kind of in the moment. So that's the I in IRMA. Then the R is redirect. So we want to shift their focus from whatever that objection or problem is to the outcome. And that outcome is usually anchored in the discovery that we did earlier on in the conversation, whether it was before the class or even on a different day. All right. So it's redirecting that focus away from the problem of starting, and more so of the outcome or what they're going to kind of get on the other side. Then the M in IRMA stands for make a suggestion. So this is a specific path forward that's tied to the situation that they've kind of presented to you. All right. So I've recognized what you've got going on. We've isolated what you've got going on. I'm showing you how there's some positive in this. And then based off of that, I'm going to make a suggestion that kind of addresses those three steps. And then the A in IRMA is asking or assuming or asking the sale, closing the loop. It's a confident ask. It's not pushy. It's kind, right? So an example, I'll give you an example of this is somebody's like, they say, oh, Zach, I need to think about it. Right. And I would give them some sort of response like, look, it's totally fair. I don't want you to feel rushed at all. Can I ask you what part you're still currently thinking about? I just want to make sure that I'm answering all of your questions. That way, when you leave here, you're not wondering and you have everything you need to make a really good decision. If you're still thinking about it, then I'll kind of continue this. And if somebody's objection was, I need to think about it, I'd say, look, you've already started. You've got momentum going right now. it's going to, this momentum, this tipping point is going to feel the same as it does today, than it would a month from now or 2 months from now. You've already created momentum that is really, really real. It's much easier to get going now than it is going to be to restart in a few months. Let's lock you into our X rate or X promotion or whatever it is, would be my suggestion. And then I would finish with, hey, would that make you feel confident moving forward? So that's like one example of how I would work through IRMA. But the two things I want to leave you with on handling objections, remember that acronym. You and your team can role play and work through examples of these all the time. And then I would consider the list of objections that you're going to hear the most often. You probably already know them. But I would say that objection list, it's usually 4 to 5 objections that people hear. I rattled them off a little bit earlier, but it's usually price is going to be number one. Number two, I already mentioned, was I need to think about it. Number three is I'm busy, schedule, time, some version of I'm busy. Number four is I need to talk to someone else. It could be a parent, it could be a spouse, or like some other person. It's like, let me check with my blah, blah, blah. So just think of like some random position of authority that exists out there. And then usually number five is some version of I'm doing a lot of other stuff, or I'm trying a lot of other stuff, or I already have a lot of other stuff. So some version of, we'll call it competition. Those would be the main objections. So the secret sauce for handling objections is having that framework. That IRMA framework is fantastic. It works really, really well. It keeps it authentic and in alignment with all the other stuff that we've kind of suggested throughout. And we said early on, like, you really need a system. And this is kind of that system to handling the most uncomfortable part for a lot of people. I will add to this as we're about to get into another example of role play here. And we should have said this a little bit earlier. Kat said, look, this is like a muscle that you kind of have to work out. For you and your team to be successful, just use this IRMA example as an example. You have to role play and you have to kind of work through these scenarios because each one is a little bit different and unique. And it's very much like riding a bike where you have to get super confident with being able to fire these things off. And once you have a lot of opportunity, a lot of reps, your comfort in those uncomfortable moments starts to kind of elevate a little bit. So remember IRMA, work on those top 5 objections, and that'll get you in the right direction of handling objections.
Yeah, the objections piece is really important because it's so helpful to expect them so you're not caught off guard. So many front desk staff or any staff at your studio, even instructors, because they are so into the studio for the most part, like on the, usually they find any objection, if they're unprepared, to be pretty surprising. They'll be like, what do you mean it's too, because if we think about like, it's too expensive. For me, it's too expensive. Like, yes, of course it could be that it is genuinely out of your budget. And that's totally fine. We don't want anybody to be in a financially uncomfortable situation by joining us. But for the most part, when someone says it's too expensive, they're actually wondering whether it's worth it for them, whether they are valuing prioritizing that expense in their lives as something that they will get some kind of return on. And so it's worth remembering that your staff will often be so surprised at an objection because they'll be like, this studio is amazing. I teach the class. I'm the best instructor in the world. So they're going to be kind of taken aback by everybody's most common objections. The other thing I'll say is the price I find is the trickiest because, like I said, you can only argue with it or work around it so much. And so that's where the isolate piece really comes in handy because it's your only real, genuine, authentic way to understand whether it truly is price. So if you're like, hey, price aside, is there anything else holding you back? I'm really just curious. And they say no. I am literally barely making ends meet. and I came because there was an intro offer and I would love to be a part of your community, but I genuinely can't afford it, then that's that. And you can even see what you do with that separately. But usually people default to price because it's uncomfortable to challenge. And usually there's something else under it. And so expensive isolation, that's where the IRMA framework can be helpful within step 3 of close.
Yeah, that's huge. I was gonna say another thing on that too, Kat. Like I sometimes you'll hear some sales gurus and stuff, and they're like, I'm sure you guys have probably heard a line like this where it's like, it's consider how much you spend on a cup of coffee every day, right? Well, the thing about that cup of coffee every day is they love their coffee. And, and they know how much they love their coffee and they feel their coffee. You're not their coffee yet. So like this goes into another piece that I would say of like, and I know this isn't the talk today, but this speaks a lot to the experience, the actual product, right? And I hate to use the term product, but this really speaks to that is it is about the value. It's what they think it's worth, because what they're saying when they say price as their hard objection, if it's a hard price objection, what they're saying is, yeah, I just don't think you're worth that much money. Typically,
Yeah,
right? It's
totally.
rarely that scenario of like, I absolutely can't do it, because guess what, guys? They've gone to your website, they've gone to your Instagram, they have an idea of what your price, they know your modality, they probably have an idea. When people are hitting with price and that's their hard objection, it is a value conversation. Um, so this is all ties into, again, building up that rapport and creating that connection and going ahead and getting that alignment, which makes this process a lot smoother.
And it's also why the pricing menu that you have at your studio is so important, because when we're mapping out pricing models for studios or diving into them to provide suggestions for change, we're looking at your intro offer as a way to make sure that that client gets to that I need the coffee moment. And typically we're looking through some of your KPIs. To mention a couple, we're looking at average attendance per month. We're looking at average attendance of intro offers pre-conversion, and then looking at what did they convert to. And so all that to say, your intro offer needs to be structured in a way that gets people there, so that when you go to have the conversation about the upsell, they get it. Which leads us nicely to our role play. I know we're great actors, but don't worry, this is the last role play.
That
Okay,
was fantastic.
so this one is I've been coming to the studio. I've just completed my intro offer.
Yeah, same scenarios before. Before I dive in, guys, like this is the energy that you're going to have at your studio when you're role playing. So I know Sarah's been there, Kat's been there, I've been there. Like getting your team role playing, it has this little feeling of like a little bit cute or silly at times, but the practice is really, really helpful. So don't be alarmed and have a slight expectation that your team, if they've never done role playing before, they might feel uh,
Awkward.
a little awkward, a little bit awkward, right? Hey, Kat, you did a really awesome job today. How are you feeling after today's session?
Oh, honestly, I am absolutely destroyed, but in the best way.
Yeah, well, I listen. That can happen with us here. When you first came in, you mentioned that you had tried a bunch of other group fitness before, but nothing had ever really stuck, and that you wanted something that would actually change how you felt. I mean, considering how you're feeling today, and after these last 2 weeks, how do you feel like this experience is going?
Way better than I expected. I mean, I I actually, this might sound crazy, but I actually feel a difference in my core. Like I feel like it's really doing something.
Yeah, that is a real benefit, and those benefits and those feelings and those adaptations, they can happen super fast. And I wanted to congratulate you because you've come in 6 times over the last 2 weeks, which is a really great rhythm, considering the results that you're after. And when we talked, you had told me that your schedule's a little bit tight, and I was going to suggest that you continue with us on the Sculpt membership, which is 8 times a month. It really feels like the right fit for you. It's 179, and it kind of keeps this pace and momentum going, so you continue to see those changes and work with your schedule.
Okay. Can you just remind me what the other options were?
Yeah, yeah. So we have a 12 time a month membership at 229, and then we also have that unlimited at 279. That unlimited membership is there for our clients who want to be coming 4+ times per week. The reason I landed on that 8 time a month membership for you is because you had mentioned that your schedule is a little bit tight, and then you're also going to be doing your cycling training that you had mentioned that you're training for a race coming up. So I thought it'd be a good complement to what you've got going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of right there. I think that makes the most sense for sure. It's more that like 179 feels, it's just a bit more than I was expecting or that I was planning to spend.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely get that. Do you mind if I ask, is it the price itself, or are you having some concerns about um, this being a habit that you're going to stick with?
Um, Gosh, I mean, no offense, I did really like it and I really love it, but probably the second if I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, here's what I want to point out. First of all, thank you for being honest. The second part of this is you showed up 6 times during this 2 week intro, right? On your own motivation. Nobody's chased you down. You showed up. You're already creating a habit. Locking in the membership is going to protect that habit. You've already told me you can feel it working. This is the time.
Um, Gosh, I guess that's a fair point. And it is really, already showing me signs of feeling like I'm, moving in the right direction with my goals.
Yeah, for sure. And here's the thing that kind of that something you can pat yourself on the back with, because you're in your intro offer. It's going to lock in your discounted pricing for the first month, and so you're getting a good rate here by continuing this momentum right now.
Okay. Well, let's do the sculpt date and then, you know, let's just see.
Cool, awesome, I love it. We'll get you started, and I'm going to make sure I check in with you along the way after your first few classes to make sure you're maintaining that momentum and we are sticking with your schedule. I'm going to make sure that you're coming in.
Okay. Thank you.
Scene.
Closed.
Yeah. So a couple things I want to point out there, guys, as we're rocking through that, and hopefully you could kind of see. I mean, we wanted to point out some of these examples that might be a little bit obvious based on the content that we've already given you. But you could hear me talking through a lot of Kat's concerns about her schedule, alluding to the frequency and the momentum that she's already accomplished. I figured out really what her concern was is not the actual price being 179, but that she was going to be paying 179 and not using it. And so I was really trying to pull her into saying, like, look, you've already created momentum and nothing has been kind of like helping you or hurting you in that way. This membership's going to kind of give you a reason to lock in that momentum. And I'm also going to be checking in on you. A couple other small things there. Um, it was the right membership based on her schedule. We're making the assumption that we had a conversation about her schedule. You heard me mention the cycling thing, so she has some other stuff going on. So I didn't offer her that unlimited that's really high pie in the sky type of thing that probably wouldn't fit with her current routine. I leaned into the benefits that she's already getting, the frequency that she's told me that she wants to have. And I gave her a little bit of urgency there by saying, "Hey, look, like you've already created the momentum. Don't restart. The intro rate is now, and you're going to get that discount today," type of thing.
The other thing that is really interesting is to think about is I would have never got there on my own. And had I spoken to, a friend about it or something, like they might have just been like, I wouldn't do it if you're not sure that you can do
Mhm.
it because they're going to be more on my side. Whereas Zach is wanting what's best for me and pushing me to, to push myself and to achieve my goals. So there are so many different ways that you can break this down to realize that it's for the good of the customer. And that should take away that like ick of, being pushy or salesy. So, okay. In terms of how to start training your team, how do you actually implement this? Role play is the best way to get people out of their comfort zones and actually practicing it. So you can do this as a team. We've had lots of sales sessions in studio. It's one of the services that we actually offer, where we go to your studio and we train your team. And one of the things that we do there is we will have a team meeting with everybody involved, and we will have little cards that you can just get on Amazon or Staples, or cut up some paper and have everybody write out all of the objections they typically hear. You mix them up on the floor, and then you can have little role play scenarios that are either using some scripts that you've mapped out, or, starting from the top with this is what we're doing, and then showing them, okay, this is where we need to actually be making some slight changes, and really mapping out the step 1, step 2, and step 3 to identify where it is that you're having some breakdown. Again, for all of this, consistency beats perfection every time. And the scripts don't need to be perfect. They just need to offer some kind of structure so that your team feels comfortable falling back on it.